What's up, guys? Little Wolf from XS. Hope y'all had a good Christmas. I hadn't been on camera in a while, so I figured I'd do this video talking about tomorrow's fights. Before I say that, last night I was watching Baki, B-A-K-I. It's an anime. If you like anime, like cartoon animation, Japanese animation, you would like this. If you like fighting, like UFC and all that, you would like this. It's basically Bloodsport. If you remember that old Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, it's basically Bloodsport, but anime. So it's really cool. I was watching that last night. I figured I'd let y'all know. Go check that out. B-A-K-I. Baki. It's on Netflix. Anyways, funny thing is, when I did fall asleep, I fell asleep on the couch, and it must have been like I was watching YouTube, some of the, the fight videos, or the what do you call it? The UFC embedded videos where they go through the, what, like Chris Cyborg's going through, getting prepared for the fight and all that. What's funny is I had a dream that, in the dream, I had missed the Chris Cyborg Amanda Nunes fight. And apparently, in the dream, Amanda Nunes got her face beat in. She got destroyed by Chris Cyborg. So I'm going to go ahead and make that prediction on the co-main event that Chris Cyborg, because of this dream, Chris Cyborg is going to stomp Amanda Nunes' face in. That's my prediction on that fight. I think Chris Cyborg's just going to be too much for Amanda Nunes. But, whatever. Carlos Condit versus Michael Chiesa. I hope Carlos Condit wins. It almost seems like Carlos has been fighting for so long. He's got 42 fights in MMA. That is a lot of fights to have in MMA. Yes, he is still young, but like I've said in the past, when you have fought for that long, it destroys your body. 42 fights. Imagine all the injuries he has gotten from training and everything. I mean, when he, everybody says that Tyrone Woodley beat him, but go back and watch that fight and watch somebody analyze it. Carlos popped his knee out of joint doing a spinning kick and then fell to the ground. And that was it. I want to say Tyrone Woodley might have kicked him in that leg prior to that, but I remember kind of seeing a video where they said the kick didn't land all that efficiently or something like that. But Carlos did this crazy spinning kick and his knee popped out of joint. You got to imagine, sorry, I got the crud right now. The crud's kind of going around Alabama. So, Carlos, it's just all those injuries from training and everything have to be stacking up on him. And you got this younger, newer fighter with only 18 fights, Michael Chiesa. I don't know how to say his last name. Even though he's not the greatest, I think it's a good matchup. It's almost like they're telling, Carlos Condit's always got a place to fight in the UFC. He's a legend. It was the WEC, was it one? I think, no, I want to say he was 155 champion in WEC. He might have been 170 champion, but I thought he was lighter when he was younger. I know now he fights at 170. They're kind of saying to Michael Chiesa, they're saying hey man, this is a big name. Carlos Condit's a huge name in MMA. They're saying this is a big name. You got to beat him in order to get back on track, to get back up there and get a title shot. And with Carlos, I hope they're not saying, Carlos, you got to beat this young guy to prove you still got it. I hope they're not saying that to him, we're going to kick you out. Some of the craziest fights I've ever seen have been Carlos Condit fights. Just the way he moves, and he's almost like a large, man, I can't remember that light, he was he was one of two guys to beat Mighty Mouse. Dadgummit, I can't remember his name. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Just look up who beat Mighty Mouse, and there's only two guys. So Carlos moves like him, but he's not as fast because he's heavier. But he's just got these kicks he brings out of nowhere. He can strike really well with his hands, fast with his hands. They say he's got a weak ground game, but from what I've seen, he does decent, not all the time. He's had some fights where he's just completely destroyed the guy, outclassed him and everything. And then he's had some fights where he just did not look good. And a lot of people are saying it's because Carlos... I'm staying on Carlos Condit so long because I grew up watching Carlos Condit from the beginning. Me and my dad watched him all the time. Just because of how crazy he was. The natural born killer, you know. So a lot of people are saying that Carlos just doesn't want it anymore. He's been fighting for so long. He's good with money. He's fine with money. He's got money. He's got a wife and kid. So it's kind of like they're saying that maybe he's just not into it anymore. Maybe he's just doing it just to keep in shape or whatever. But I don't know. I want Carl. I don't know who's going to win that fight, really. Like, I couldn't. If I had a gun to my head, maybe I would say Michael Chiesa or whatever by submission. But I have no clue. I hope Carlos wins, and I hope it's like a freakish knockout. Moving down, the fourth fight on the card, it's actually on the main event. It's the second in line, the second fight you'll see. Ilir Latifi, I don't know how to say his first name, versus Corey Anderson. I don't know enough about Corey Anderson to say really anything about him. I've watched some of his, highlight videos and stuff like that. I've seen some of his fights, but I wasn't paying attention because I'm like, who's Corey Anderson? He's facing a guy with a similar record in Latifi. Latifi is I know he wrestles. I know he's got pretty heavy hands. And I know he's fast for a guy his size. For some reason, everything I looked up, I guess Latifi fights at heavyweight and light heavyweight. I can't remember, but everything I bring up, it keeps saying heavyweight. But this is a light heavyweight fight. To my knowledge, I've only seen Latifi fight at light heavyweight. But anyways, I have no idea who's going to win. I hope Latifi wins just because how exciting he is. I want him to kind of get up higher in just his fighting style, how exciting he is. I want him to get up higher in the rankings so he can start facing some crazier opponents. And we'll actually see if he's truly got it. Moving down, you got Chad Mendes versus Volt. Chad Mendes, I don't know anything about this Volt guy, but for some reason I just don't like Chad Melendez. Keep saying Melendez. Chad Mendes. For some reason I don't like him. He just has that kind of like... Maybe he's a cool dude, but he's got kind of like a fake personality when he's on camera or in front of people. It's weird. But I feel like he's going to win just because of my dislike for him. That's my very uneducated opinion on the 4 fights. Now for the main event, another light heavyweight fight. Jon Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson. I already gave my opinion on this. Jon Jones is going to stomp Alexander Gustafsson's head in. First or second round, knockout or submission. Alexander Gustafsson, like I said, Jon Jones has all this tape he can study on Gustafsson because it's been so long since they fought. Jon Jones, since fighting Alexander Gustafsson, I want to say he's only fought like 3 times. I know he fought Daniel Cormier twice. Let me look it up. While I'm looking this up, everyone knows about the failed drug test. And I really didn't have a... Oh, this is good. This 2 minutes ago, Jon Jones throws a hissy fit after a reporter asks about his atypical drug test. If I can find that video, I'll put it in the description down below, and then you can click that. Jon Jones throws a hissy fit after a reporter asks about his atypical drug test. I'm trying to go to his Wikipedia. I want to see his fight record. Okay, so where did he fight? There it is. Alexander Gustafsson. Then he fought Glover Teixeira, went to decision. Fought Daniel Cormier, went to decision. Fought St. Peru, went to decision. Those were that I remember. I know he beat up Glover pretty bad. And then the Daniel Cormier fight was kind of, I want to say it was boring that I remember. And then the St. Peru fight, I do remember that one. That one was boring. And then he head kicked Daniel Cormier into oblivion. But where did he when did he start getting the where's it at? Jones was stripped of the title. That was the first Daniel Cormier match. After violating UFC's athlete code of conduct. Was that the cocaine one or the hit and run? I don't remember. And then the second, the Open St. Peru, he won the interim, and then he was stripped again, testing positive. That was the steroid test. No, was that the steroid test, or was that the tainted substance test, or whatever? Then he head kicked Daniel Cormier to oblivion, and that's when he tested for the Turinabol steroid. He is going to have an asterisk next to his name. Everybody knows right now that God, I just went over 10 minutes. Whatever. Everybody right now knows that he just popped positive again. What makes me mad about this is, like, Nick Diaz, one of my favorite fighters, gets suspended for smoking weed. But John Jones pops a second time for steroids, and they're just like, he's good, he can fight. You know, it's like, I know that Dana White and Nick Diaz do not get along, but I feel like in business, Nick Diaz is a fan favorite, and I feel like in business that you need to put your personal opinion aside, you know. Dana White can't do that. That's one thing people love and one thing people hate about Dana White is he wears his heart on his sleeve. You know exactly, like, he tells you how he feels about people. You can tell, he'll tell you if he likes a fighter more. I don't know if he likes John Jones, but he seems to protect John Jones more than anybody else. And I know John Jones is a big moneymaker for him. God, I keep getting distracted. I'm going to go up there. Okay, so I can't remember what else I was going to say. I had this thing on, I've had this in my phone forever, and I wanted to go ahead and get it on camera so I could delete it off my phone. I was doing that. Somebody told me that John Jones was a better fighter than Anderson Silva, or a better champion than Anderson Silva, and they were saying that John Jones would hand down, if they were both in their prime, John Jones would hands down destroy Anderson Silva. Maybe he would. Anderson's a little bit smaller than John Jones. But I wanted to say what was on this to tell you why I believe John Jones was better. So John Jones fought Rampage. John Jones was 12 when Rampage fought his first fight. So John Jones basically fought an old, washed-up fighter. John Jones was 16 when Lyoto Machida had his first fight. Once again, fights an older, washed-up fighter. And I'm saying washed up as in, these guys aren't fighting anymore. Like, or some of them are. I think Chael Sonnen is still fighting, but they're not winning. Nobody's talking about them. John Jones was 10 when he fought Chael Sonnen. When John Jones, that sounded fun. John Jones was 10 when Chael Sonnen had his first fight. So he's fighting John Jones is the younger, bigger guy fighting these old guys who are on their way out trying to make a money fight. And those were some of the fights that people were like, John Jones is the greatest. The Rampage, the Lyoto, the Chael Sonnen. He's the greatest, man. He dismantles everybody. And if you watch Anderson Silva, John Jones and Anderson Silva both fought Stephan Bonnar. Anderson Silva destroyed Stephan Bonnar. Destroyed him. Stephan Bonnar had never been stopped before. I'm not saying Stephan Bonnar was a good fighter. He was well-rounded. I'm not saying he's the greatest, but Anderson Silva dismantled him. And John Jones took Stephan Bonnar to a decision. I mean, it's like, come on. One guy absolutely destroys this other fighter, and then John Jones takes the same fighter who got destroyed, just drags it out to decision. The only man to beat John Jones, or actually, to almost beat John Jones was Alexander Gustafsson. So this kind of ties in now the fight tomorrow. He's fighting Alexander Gustafsson. Alexander Gustafsson took it to John Jones. And John Jones, after the fight, there's a famous photo. John Jones looked dead. He looked nasty. He was laying in a hospital bed. His face was all swollen up. He did win that fight. I've watched that fight multiple times. He just barely did enough to win that fight. But the only man to almost beat John Jones was the same size and same age. Everybody else John Jones has fought, mostly everybody else John Jones has fought, they've all been old, washed-up fighters who have been fighting forever. Great, amazing fighters, ex-champions, but just washed-up fighters. So to say that Anderson Silva was fighting fighters who would have been, if Anderson Silva wasn't in the picture, they would have been some of the greatest fighters ever. And Anderson Silva was destroying these guys in their prime. Destroying them. John Jones fought a whole bunch of washed up. Early in his career, he fought, young guys his age, but guys who just never really did anything and went on to do, be anybody. Some of them did, but not most of them didn't. And then he fought a whole bunch of old, washed up guys. And people are like, John Jones is better than Anderson Silva. Nah, maybe John Jones could beat Anderson Silva. If they were both in their prime, Anderson doesn't do great with wrestlers. But I think, what happened in the Lyoto Machida fight, John Jones tried to stand up and fight, strike with Lyoto Machida, who is possibly one of the greatest strikers next to Anderson Silva. And Lyoto Machida took it to John Jones. And when he come out in that second round, he charged Lyoto Machida and put him in a chokehold. I feel like John Jones would try and stand up and fight Anderson Silva. He would know that Anderson's not good on the ground, and John Jones is cocky, so he would try and beat him on the feet. And I feel like Anderson Silva would make John Jones eat a front kick or just do some crazy... Anderson Silva used to look like a freaking video game, the stuff he would do. John Jones does some cool stuff, but nowhere near as flashy and crazy looking as what Anderson Silva was doing. Anderson Silva was like a cheat code in a video game. Remember, there's an old Techno Bowl or whatever where Bo Jackson, he was voted one of the greatest athletes of all time. It was cheating using him because he was faster than everybody else on the game. I feel like they need to make a UFC game where you can't use Anderson Silva because he was in his prime, he was like a freaking video game character or something. It was crazy. I've gone way too long on this video. Anyways, if you watch to the end now, appreciate y'all watching. I'm going to post a video in the description down below that kind of talks. It's Brendan Schaub talking more in depth about how bad it is that they're letting John Jones continue to fight. But anyways, appreciate y'all watching. Check me out, SoundCloud, Instagram, Twitter, and like always, check me out on the streets.